Good morning. Big day here at Court TV. A big day in the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. Court expected to begin about an hour from now, but we want to begin with that breaking news out of the Supreme Court. A draft opinion obtained by Politico reveals that the Supreme Court justices at this point seem to be expected to overturn Roe versus Wade this term. Court TV has not been able to confirm the authenticity of the draft. A landmark 1973 ruling established the right to an abortion nearly 50 years ago. Nothing's final yet, but demonstrators on both sides, as soon as this became public, took to the streets outside of the High Court this morning and last night. It's unclear if the leaked draft represents the court's final word. In fact, we know it doesn't, because this is literally the first draft, and there are always several drafts. However, the way it is written, and the specifics within it sure lends you to believe that indeed Roe v. Wade is going down. The draft was written by Justice Samuel Alito, and it is very clear that Roe v. Wade, in the majority opinion, is going down. This is a live look outside of the Supreme Court. The Politico draft was written by Alito. It said that it was joined by Justice Thomas and all three of the Trump nominees, Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett. The big question is, where does Chief Justice John Roberts sit on that? Will he join the majority, write his own opinion, or that will remain to be seen. But the headline, the breaking news, is that in many states across the country, if this is the law of the land and it is overturned, instantly you will see that abortion will not be legal. Several states have what they call trigger laws already in place. So if the Supreme Court does in fact make this opinion, if they publish this opinion, the one that we have seen the draft of, then instantly a big portion of the country in the South and the Midwest, abortion will no longer be legal. With us, criminal defense attorney Karen Felicia Dance. She's in San Francisco, California, and criminal defense attorney Marie Pereira is in New York. Everybody woke up this morning, and this has been talked about and predicted for years as the court has turned over the years with especially President Trump, his opportunity, if you will, to put 3 members onto the court. But still, boom, 50 years later, it is a shocker, is it not, you know, Karen, to see it? Okay, this is a huge change, and it sure does look like Roe v. Wade is going down, along with Planned Parenthood versus Casey. What's your reaction to this? Karen, to you first.
It's good morning, Ted and Marie. It's very disappointing because it's going to disproportionately affect poor people. They're the poor women of childbearing age, because they're not going to be able to access the means health-wise to take care of what they have a right to protect their bodies. And so when we talk about 22 states, and mostly in the Midwest and the South, that are going to be affected and most probably will ban abortion, it'll be difficult to travel out of state, and it just has all kinds of financial and health implications, but primarily affecting those that are less fortunate in our society, and that's the sad reality of this.
Marie, your thoughts?
I'm hoping that it's a draft and it's just not going to happen, because if it happened, it would be an unflinching repudiation of women's rights. It would disregard public opinion, case law, and it makes absolutely no sense to me that they would say that Roe v. Wade at this point in time, and Planned Parenthood v. Casey, makes no sense and should have never been in the first place. It's shocking.
We listened to the oral arguments take place in front of the court with Dobbs v. Jackson, out of the case out of Mississippi, which is at the center of all of this. Let's go back and listen to both sides of this argument and get a sense, a reminder, if you will, of what was argued in front of the justices.
Roe versus Wade and Planned Parenthood versus Casey haunt our country. They have no basis in the Constitution. They have no home in our history or traditions. They've damaged the democratic process. They poison the law. They've choked off compromise. For 50 years, they've kept this court at the center of a political battle that it can never resolve. And 50 years on, they stand alone. Nowhere else does this court recognize a right to end a human life.
Mississippi's ban on abortion 2 months before viability is flatly unconstitutional under decades of precedent. Mississippi asks of the court to dismantle this precedent and allow states to force women to remain pregnant and give birth against their will.
The draft that Politico got its hands on was written by Samuel Alito, Justice Alito, and it was circulated in February. And it says on it, this is the first draft, and typically there are many drafts, so this is the first one. The report said that Alito was joined by Justice Clarence Thomas and all three of the former justices, as we said, nominated by President Trump, including Justice Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett. The dissent side, Stephen Breyer, Elena Kagan, and Sonia Sotomayor, that not a huge surprise there at all. The unknown at this point is Justice John Roberts. He assigned, likely after the conference following the oral arguments, all the justices meet and they sort of hash it out in closed doors. It's highly secretive, and at that point, the majority is assigned to somebody, and in this case, it was assigned to Alito. When you look at what we know at this point, and you read through it, it sure does seem like it's an authentic first draft, Karen. Is there, for people that are like Marie, hoping that this is just a first draft that may change, honestly, in your opinion, what are the chances of this not being the final version of a majority decision?
Well, the reports are that it's not going to be the final, that the final won't look exactly like this draft.
Right, but
they're similar.
The sentiment.
Right, and so that most probably the court, by majority, are going to overturn Roe v. Wade and Casey. So that's what has been reported, and then instead of being handled legally in the legal system, being handled politically. And for the majority of Republicans on the bench on the Supreme Court, that might not bode well for the majority of the public. As Marie indicated, the majority of the public are not in favor of overturning Roe v. Wade. So it might come back and bite them at the end.
Marie, what about the argument that the court has for the last 50 years been the arena for this national wicked debate, and that it should not be the Supreme Court, it should not be the law of the land, but yet but instead it should be local jurisdictions, i.e. states, making this decision, elected officials and states making this decision, because that's really the core of the argument against Roe v. Wade. Your thoughts?
And that's always been it. The Democrats are not conservative, and they believe that a woman should have a right to choose what happens with their body. Of course, the Republicans are very conservative, and they think that it should be controlled on a state-by-state basis. You know what this tells us? I agree with Karen, where there's smoke, there's fire, and this draft is not completely out of order for what we should be expecting. What we should be doing, and what basically they're saying, is let state by state choose what they want. Let the representatives choose who has the right to control their bodies or not. We need to go out and vote for the representatives who will represent our points of view, because clearly now the court is saying public opinion doesn't matter. Half a century old case that has been decided on the federal level doesn't matter, and they want to give it back to the states. We need to go out and vote for representatives who represent our view, whatever that may be.
Well, you bring up a good point, and a part of the equation here is the timing of this unprecedented leak. This has never happened before, where a first draft has been leaked. Why was it leaked? Well, it's clear. There are primary elections in many states coming up next month, this month. You know, this is election season for many states, and this was leaked likely just for that reason that Marie pointed out. And Karen, just think about that, of all of the drafts that have been created at the Supreme Court, this is the first one that has ever been leaked. And apparently, according to Politico, it was leaked by somebody associated with the Mississippi case who had the draft. Your thoughts, and picking up where Marie just left off on the implications here, fast forwarding, if I live in a state that is going to see an immediate change, someone with a trigger law already in place, what should you expect, and what should we expect, in your opinion, knowing what we know?
Total chaos, right? Because we have a situation where maybe half the states, you're allowed to have an abortion, it's legal, and the other half it's banned. And so it puts people in a precarious situation. If I want to have an abortion, I have to travel out of state. And for people of very low financial means, poor people we're talking about basically, and that's in the southern states and in the Midwest states, they're just going to be denied that right. So we're talking about a fair and equal government, and we won't have that, because if I just happen to live in a state that's banned, then I'm going to be deprived of privileges of someone that's in a state that does have the right to an abortion. So it's not going to be fair. We don't live in a fair society when we think about the Constitution and everyone should be treated equally. They're not going to be treated equally is the reality. That's what would happen.
If you do live in a state where, Karen, abortions are illegal, you have every right to drive to a neighboring state. We've seen that happen. Is that your assessment of what the new landscape could look like? Is people flying to other states for abortions?
Well, definitely, but it would be very few people that are able to do that, right? Because the majority of people this would impact would be people of low economic means, and they wouldn't have the resources to do that. They might not even have the wherewithal to do that. Flying or driving to a different state requires accommodations, it requires money, it requires leaving your job for a certain period of time, and people of low economic means just don't have the opportunity to do that. So it is affecting the poor people in a disproportionate way. So that's the problem. It doesn't just free up you to just travel from state to state, because most people don't have those means to do that.
Marie, what's your opinion on the leak itself? It is very disturbing on many levels, because this is uncharted territory. If the society's now gotten to the point where the Supreme Court drafts are being leaked and justices are looking over their shoulders at aides and others, and that sense of trust that is just permeated, or enveloped the Supreme Court for so many decades, in an instant now, there's some second thoughts. And we do understand it came from somebody in Mississippi, according to Politico, but boy, there's going to be some major investigation, one would think, and just want to get your thoughts, no matter what the motivation is for this leak, your thoughts about the fact that there was a leak of a draft.
I think this is something to the magnitude of impacting national security. I don't think it's an exaggeration for them to actually get their hands on a draft and leak it. Is just something unheard of. It has never happened, and I think that it should trigger an intense investigation. And this is something that is on the level of a national security breach, in my opinion.
Yeah, and we'll, I'm sure, in the coming days and months, find out more. We are expecting a statement from the White House at some point this morning. When we get that, we'll pass it along to you.